You ever feel like the world just won't shut up? Notifications, opinions, deadlines, comparisons, pressure, it's constant. It's like standing in the middle of a stadium with every voice yelling at you at once, and you're just trying to hear your own thoughts. You've got dreams, you've got goals, you've got a vision for your life. But every time you try to move forward, the noise pulls you back. Distractions steal your focus. Doubt creeps in. Fear disguises itself as logic. And before you know it, you're reacting to life instead of creating it. Let me tell you something real. Clarity is not something that just shows up one day. It's something you earn. You've got to fight for it. You've got to get intentional. You've got to silence the noise. Not just outside of you, but inside of you too. That inner critic that says you're not good enough. That voice that tells you to play small. That mental chatter that keeps looping the same stories on repeat. You've got to shut it down, because until you do, you're not running your life. You're letting life run you, and here's the truth most people avoid. Domination doesn't come from doing more. It comes from mastering less. From cutting through the clutter. From knowing exactly who you are and what you're here to do, and refusing to be distracted by anything that doesn't align with it. That level of focus, it's not natural. It's trained. It's forged in the fire of discipline, self-respect, and decision. You don't get it by accident. You get it by taking ownership. Every breakthrough begins with one thing, getting quiet enough to hear the truth. Not the world's truth, your truth. The deeper part of you that already knows what you need to do. That part of you that isn't interested in likes, followers, trends, or temporary applause. That part of you that is built for legacy. For impact, for greatness, but to access it, you've got to silence the noise. Most people don't even realize the war they're in, because it's not outside of them, it's happening inside. That voice in your head, that constant commentary, that's the voice that either builds you or breaks you. And if you're not consciously choosing what it says, you're living under the control of a script that was written for you by fear, by failure, by conditioning, by everything you've ever heard from someone who doubted you. It's like running a program on your phone that you didn't download. It's chewing up your battery, slowing everything down, and you wonder why your life feels stuck. Your inner dialogue is the thermostat of your destiny. If it's set low, you will unconsciously sabotage every opportunity that comes your way to match that temperature. Someone tells you you're great, and you reject it. You get momentum, and then you stall. You have a vision, and then your mind floods with what-ifs. Why? Because that thermostat hasn't been reset. That inner voice hasn't been reprogrammed. It's still stuck on fear, doubt, guilt, shame. And you wonder why you're exhausted. Why you can't focus. Why every win feels temporary. It's because the voice running the show doesn't believe you deserve to stay at the top. And until you confront it, nothing changes. We live in a world that's loud. Everyone has something to say about who you should be, what you should do, how you should act. But the loudest influence in your life isn't Instagram. It's not your boss. It's not your parents. It's your own mind. That voice is on 24/7. It never takes a break. The question is, who trained it, who fed it, who gave it its tone? For most people, it was formed by moments of pain, rejection, embarrassment, trauma. And now that voice has become a defense mechanism, trying to protect you by keeping you small, by keeping you safe, by keeping you out of the game. But if you want to dominate your life, you have to dominate your mind. And domination doesn't mean suppression. It means leadership. It means you stop letting the noise dictate your identity. You start interrupting patterns. You start rewiring the story. You start saying, that thought doesn't serve me, so it doesn't belong. You stop entertaining every doubt like it's truth. Just because it shows up doesn't mean you have to engage it. You're not the thought. You're the thinker, and the thinker has power. The thinker has choice. The thinker can say, not today. Every successful person you admire didn't get there just because they worked hard. They got there because they mastered their mental environment. They built an inner fortress. They trained the voice in their head to speak strength when everyone else was speaking weakness. They made their mind their greatest asset, not their greatest liability. And you can do the same, But it starts with awareness. You've got to catch the inner critic in the act. You've got to become so familiar with the pattern that you can stop at mid-sentence. Not tomorrow, now. Start noticing the words you use when you talk to yourself. Are they empowering or disempowering? Are they aligned with who you're becoming or anchored to who you used to be? You can't dominate your life with language that chains you to the past. You've got to speak to yourself like someone you respect, someone you believe in, someone who's got something to bring to the world. Because here's the truth. Your life rises or falls to the level of your internal standards. And your internal standards are shaped by your self-talk. Let's get real. Your brain was not designed to multitask the way you think it can. Every ping, every scroll, every swipe is a hit of dopamine pulling your attention away from the thing that actually matters. You've got a goal, you've got a dream, you've got a mission, but if your focus is constantly being hijacked by every notification on your phone, you're not moving forward, you're spinning in place, and the most dangerous part, you've trained your brain to live in reaction mode. You're reacting to emails, texts, news feeds, trends, and when you're always reacting, you're never creating. You can't build a legacy with a distracted mind. People say time is their most valuable asset. No, it's your attention. Because where your attention goes, your energy flows. Where your energy flows, your results grow. If your attention is scattered across 15 apps, 20 tabs, and 100 people's opinions, you've handed over your power. And let me tell you something. Distracted people don't change the world. Focused people do. Laser, focus people. People who eliminate noise like it's their job, because it is. If you want to dominate your life, you've got to learn to defend your focus like your life depends on it. Because it does. Distraction isn't just stealing your time. It's stealing your potential. You're not just missing a few minutes here and there. You're missing momentum. You're missing depth. You're missing mastery. There's no greatness in halfway attention. There's no breakthrough when your mind is split in 10 directions. You've got to build an environment where focus becomes the default, not the exception. And that starts by cutting the digital fat. Unfollow. Unsubscribe, turn it off, delete the app. Set boundaries so tight that only your vision can squeeze through. This isn't about being anti-technology. This is about using technology as a tool, not a trap. It's about creating more than you consume. It's about designing a digital life that amplifies your purpose instead of numbing your mind. Because most people don't realize they've become addicted to distraction. They don't feel comfortable in stillness anymore. Silence feels awkward, and that's a problem. Because in that silence is where you hear your next breakthrough. In that stillness is where clarity shows up. In that focus is where your edge is forged. You want to know how champions train. They get tunnel vision. They don't try to do everything. They dominate one thing. They know exactly where their energy needs to go, and they protect that energy with everything they've got. They say no more than they say yes. They have fewer tabs open, not just on their computer, but in their mind, and because of that, they go deeper, they get better. They outlast everyone else who's scattered and overwhelmed. That's what separates the average from the extraordinary, not more talent, more focus, and let's be honest. Distraction doesn't just come from devices. Sometimes it comes from people, from conversations that drain you, from relationships that cloud your thinking, from opinions that keep you second, guessing your decisions. You've got to curate your circle just like you curate your feed. If someone is constantly pulling your attention away from your mission, you need to pause and ask yourself, what am I really committed to? Am I committed to pleasing people or to fulfilling my purpose? You can't outsource focus. No one's going to come in and organize your mind for you. That's your job, that's your responsibility, and it's also your power. Because once you eliminate distraction, once you reclaim your attention, you tap into a level of productivity that most people will never experience. You stop leaking energy, you stop wasting mental bandwidth. You start making decisions faster, executing faster, rising faster. That's when things start moving. That's when you become dangerous, not because you're doing more, but because you're finally doing the right things with full attention, full intensity, and full intention. Focus is not a gift. It's a skill, a muscle, and just like any muscle in your body, if you don't train it, it weakens. If you don't use it, you lose it. You were not born distracted. You've just been conditioned into it. Every time you check your phone without thinking, every time you switch tasks halfway through, every time you let your mind wander without pulling it back, you're reinforcing mental weakness. But here's the truth: you can rewire your focus. You can reclaim your attention span. You can build concentration like an athlete builds strength. But it takes reps. It takes strategy. It takes intensity. You don't build focus in comfort. You build it under resistance. You build it when you sit in front of a task, a project, a challenge. And you stay. You don't move. You don't flinch. You feel the itch to check something else. You feel the urge to get up, to walk away, to scroll. But instead, you lean in. That's the rep. That's the set. That's the moment you train your brain to obey your mission instead of your impulses. Every time you win that moment, you get stronger. Every time you delay distraction, you build focus. It doesn't happen all at once, but over time you create a new identity. You go from someone who gets easily pulled to someone who's laser, locked on their path. The gym of your mind is your day. That calendar, that to-do list, those hours between sunrise and sleep. That's your training ground. And how you show up matters, because repetition isn't enough. You need the right form. Just like you wouldn't lift weights with sloppy posture, you can't build focus with sloppy habits. You need structure. Time blocks, go zones, deep work sessions, rituals. You need to treat your focus like a sacred ritual, not a random accident. You don't wait until you feel like it. You schedule it. You don't wait for inspiration. You create the conditions where it shows up. And part of that is building friction between you and your distractions. Make it harder to slip. Turn off the notifications. Leave your phone in another room. Use apps that block access when your willpower fades. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer temptations. Don't expect your brain to win a war you haven't prepared for. Stack the deck in your favor. Design an environment that makes it easier to go deep and harder to drift. That's not weakness. That's intelligence. That's ownership. That's how the pros play. But even with the perfect structure, focus doesn't stick unless you attach it to purpose. If you don't have a reason that lights your soul on fire, you will always be seduced by the meaningless. You'll always chase the next quick hit, the next little dopamine spike, the next escape. Focus without meaning turns into burnout, but when you connect it to something bigger, deeper, real, you can go through fire and still keep your mind sharp. That's why athletes, artists, leaders, they don't just train focus, they attach it to a mission, something that makes the pain worth it, something that makes saying no to distraction a powerful yes to their future. You've got to make your vision more exciting than your feed. You've got to make your dream more urgent than your DM. You've got to turn your work into a game of progress where every session of deep focus becomes a scoreboard of discipline. That's how you flip the script. That's how you go from being controlled by your cravings to being led by your commitment. Because when focus becomes your identity, your reality starts to bend around it. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You stop explaining your silence. You stop trying to keep up with the noise. And instead, you make moves in the quiet that echo loud. You want to know what separates the top 1%. It's not luck. It's not talent. It's how long they can hold their attention on a single outcome. It's how deep they can go when everyone else stays shallow. It's how consistent they are when the world is built for distraction. While others are refreshing their screens, they're refining their edge. While others are drowning in information, they're mastering execution because they trained their focus. They made it non-negotiable, and they keep showing up for it, even on the days it's hard, even on the days it's boring, even when no one's watching. Let me ask you something straight up. When's the last time you were fully present with yourself? I mean really present, not scrolling, not reacting, not escaping, just fully locked in with your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, your pain, your truth. Because most people live their entire lives disconnected from themselves. They live in reaction to the world around them. They've got the volume cranked up so loud from everything external that they forget how to hear the sound of their own instincts, and that silence, when you finally allow it, that's not emptiness. That's power, that's where your clarity lives. See, silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of space, and that space is where growth happens. That's where you meet the unfiltered version of yourself. No masks, no filters, no pretending, just raw, real presence, and yeah, it can be uncomfortable at first. Most people don't want to be alone with their thoughts because those thoughts aren't all sunshine. That's where the doubts creep in, that's where the past knocks, that's where the fear tries to whisper, but if you have the courage to stay in that space, not run, not numb, not distract, you start to hear something else. You start to hear your own voice, the voice that's been buried under noise for way too long. When you silence the external chaos, you start to separate the truth from the lies. You start to see where you've been playing small, where you've been pretending, where you've been holding back just to fit in or keep the peace. And you can't change what you won't face. That's why silence isn't weakness, it's strength. Because it forces you to confront. It forces you to listen to the part of you that wants more, the part of you that's tired of settling, the part of you that remembers what it felt like to dream before the world told you to shrink. And it's in that silence where your intuition starts to roar. You know what I'm talking about. That gut feeling that never lies. That inner compass that knows exactly what you need to do, but you've been too distracted to follow it. You've asked everyone else for advice, looked at every quote online, tried to find your answers in the crowd. But the truth is, you already know. You've always known. You just haven't created the silence to let that knowing rise to the surface. That's the gift of tuning out the world. It lets you tune into yourself. There's a reason high performers, warriors, creators, they all build time for solitude, not because it's trendy, not because they want to meditate on a beach for Instagram, but because they understand this. You can't lead a powerful life if you're constantly being led by noise. Every notification, every headline, every opinion, it pulls a piece of your focus away from your power. You've got to protect your peace like it's the foundation of everything you're building, because it is. You don't build empires in chaos, you build them in clarity, and clarity comes from intentional stillness. Let's get something straight. Silence doesn't mean laziness, it doesn't mean doing nothing. It means creating space for alignment. It means stepping out of the frantic pace so you can make decisions from vision, not pressure. You move faster when your mind is still. You execute better when your energy isn't scattered. You show up bolder when you're connected to who you are and what you want. That kind of power doesn't come from noise. It comes from grounded, centered focus. It comes from having the discipline to unplug, not just from devices, but from distraction, from comparison, from anything that pulls you away from your true self. You don't need to escape your life. You need to re-enter it from a place of power. And that means creating rituals that pull you back to center. Maybe it's morning silence before the world wakes up. Maybe it's breathwork, journaling, walking without your phone. Whatever it is, it's not about the method, it's about the message. I'm choosing to hear myself again. I'm choosing to make space for truth. I'm choosing to dominate from the inside out. Because when your internal world is strong, the external noise doesn't shake you. When your identity is rooted in awareness, distractions lose their grip. You stop chasing validation. You stop playing the comparison game. You start leading your life from a place of conviction, not confusion. You weren't put here to live by default. You were put here to live by design. And that means you can't wait around hoping your environment is going to line up perfectly before you make a move. The world's not going to stop being loud. The distractions aren't going to suddenly disappear. People won't just magically stop offering their opinions about who you should be or how you should live. That's not going to change. But what can change is your internal architecture, the way you choose to wire your focus, your energy, your belief system. That's the game changer. That's the foundation of everything. You build that architecture moment by moment, and the structure is built in the decisions that no one else sees. It's when you decide to stop scrolling and start studying. It's when you choose to get up earlier instead of hitting snooze. It's in the moment you walk away from gossip and lean into growth. Every one of those choices is a brick. And when you start stacking those bricks with discipline, with consistency, with intention, you build something no one can shake. That's when life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. That's when domination begins, not over other people, but over your own chaos. But here's the catch. You can't build anything powerful in a toxic ecosystem. If your mind is constantly cluttered with drama, comparison, fear, and self-doubt, you're trying to plant seeds in poisoned soil. You've got to detox the distractions. You've got to take control of what you let into your system. Mentally, emotionally, physically. What are you listening to every day? Who are you surrounding yourself with? What stories are you rehearsing in your mind? If that stuff isn't aligned with who you want to become, it's got to go. No apologies, no hesitation. You protect your peace like your future depends on it, because it does. When you do that, when you take command of your internal state, something wild happens. You stop being controlled by the noise outside. You start living in alignment. Alignment is where your words, your actions, your beliefs, your values, they all line up. And when you're aligned, you move different. You don't second guess. You don't beg for clarity. You don't play small to make other people comfortable. You walk into the room and your energy speaks before you do. Because you're not faking it. You've earned it. You've done the inner work. You've sharpened the edge. You've gone deep while everyone else stayed surface. And that's when your presence starts to become disruptive. In the best way. People can feel it. They sense you've got something they don't. Not arrogance, not ego, just certainty. And certainty is magnetic. But it doesn't come from pretending. It comes from confronting the parts of yourself you used to run from. The doubts, the fears, the insecurities, you faced them. You didn't numb them, you didn't drown them out with noise. You sat with them and you worked through them. That's what gives you authority. That's what makes your energy undeniable. That's what separates you from the ones still chasing permission to rise. Because here's what most people never realize. The loudest noise you'll ever battle is not the world. It's your own inner critic. That voice that tells you you're not ready, not good enough, not qualified. That voice that tells you to wait until later. Wait until it's perfect. Wait until someone else says go. You've got to silence that voice with action. You've got to bury it in proof. Every time you show up when it's hard, every time you push through resistance, every time you honor your word to yourself, you weaken that voice. You rewrite your identity. You stop seeing yourself as a prisoner of your past and start stepping into the architect of your future. And that future, it doesn't belong to the distracted. It doesn't belong to the reactive. It doesn't belong to the people still trying to please everyone around them. It belongs to the focused, the disciplined, the self-aware, the ones who don't need the world to validate them because they've already claimed themselves. The ones who decided that waiting for the perfect moment is a trap, and the moment is now. The ones who stopped negotiating with excuses and started demanding results. That's the energy that changes lives. That's the shift that rewrites the script. That's the mindset that builds empires. To dominate your life, you have to stop being addicted to comfort. Comfort is the silent killer of dreams. It sneaks in dressed like peace. But what it really delivers is stagnation. Most people don't even realize it, but they're living in a trap of their own design. They call it balance, they call it being realistic, but what it really is fear dressed up in a socially acceptable costume. It's fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of change, so they stick to what's familiar, even when it's suffocating them. Even when it's draining their energy, their passion, their ambition. But nothing great ever came from comfort. Every breakthrough you crave lives on the other side of discomfort, and that's the truth most people don't want to hear. When you chase comfort, you choose short. Term ease over long-term fulfillment. And that's the trade most people keep making over and over again. They numb themselves with distractions, food, scrolling, drama, anything to avoid confronting the uncomfortable truth that they are meant for more, but they aren't doing what it takes to get it. Because more doesn't show up at your door. More is earned, it's built. It's created through fire, and the fire is supposed to burn. You're not supposed to coast through transformation. You're supposed to sweat through it. You're supposed to wrestle with it. You're supposed to feel like quitting and decide to go one more round anyway. Look at the people who are crushing it in life. Not just in business or success, but in joy, purpose, impact. They've all developed one trait that changes the game: emotional conditioning. They don't flinch when things get hard. They don't fold when pressure rises. They've trained themselves to lean into it, because pressure is a privilege. It means growth is available. It means you're at an edge, and edges are where new power is born. But if you avoid the edge, if you stay wrapped in your comfort zone, you'll never know what you're capable of, and that is the real loss, not failure, but potential that never got expressed. You've got to get real with yourself. What part of your life are you soft in? Where are you choosing convenience over commitment? Because domination doesn't come to the most talented. It comes to the most conditioned. The ones who show up even when they don't feel like it. The ones who do the work in silence when no one is clapping. The ones who push through the discomfort because they've made discomfort their home. That's how champions are made. Not by avoiding the storm, but by becoming the storm. Not by dodging the pain, but by letting the pain sharpen them. And don't get it twisted. This isn't about being robotic or void of emotion. It's about learning to use your emotions, not be used by them. It's about rewiring your nervous system so that stress becomes a signal to rise, not retreat. Every time you break through a moment you once ran from, you redefine your identity. You build unshakable confidence. You stop needing motivation and start running on momentum. That's the shift. That's when you go from living in reaction to living in domination. But it starts with a decision to be bigger than your excuses, a decision to stop negotiating with your limits, a decision to get addicted to growth instead of comfort. Growth is messy, it's inconvenient, it's exhausting, but it's also magnetic. It's fulfilling. It's what you were designed for. You weren't built to survive. You were built to evolve, but evolution demands discomfort. It demands sacrifice. It demands that you let go of who you were to make room for who you're becoming. And yes, there will be fear, there will be resistance. That's not a sign to stop, it's a sign you're on the right track. Discomfort is the compass. When it shows up, it means you're stretching. It means your old limits are being tested. And if you keep leaning in, if you keep showing up, if you keep training your focus, your grit, your discipline, eventually, discomfort becomes your advantage. While everyone else is running from the fire, you're walking through it. While they're waiting for perfect timing, you're creating it. While they're stuck in the same cycles, you've already leveled up to a new game. You learn to embrace the suck. You learn to love the grind. Not because it's easy, but because it's real, because it strips away the fluff and exposes who you really are. And in that exposure, you find freedom, you stop hiding, you stop pretending, you start leading. Because you've been forged, not just motivated. You've been transformed, not just inspired. That's the difference between those who wish and those who win. Between those who wait and those who dominate.